Are you struggling to remember any acronyms as a pilot? Well, my name is Brendan and I'm here to tell you about acronyms that I think every pilot should know. All right, so the first acronym we want to talk about is the I'm Safe acronym. It starts off with I, which is illness. We talk about pilots having like sinus blocks. You don't want to go fly with a cold. The next is medication. Us as pilots, we have a strict regimen, I guess you could say, on medication, things we can and cannot take. The third thing in the acronym is going to be stress. So us as pilots, we need to worry about our stress levels getting in the plane, especially as instructors going to teach, new private students and things like that. The next letter in the acronym is going to be alcohol, which as pilots, we, just like driving a car, there's a certain alcohol requirement that we need to meet. It's 0.04 for the blood alcohol content, much lower than a car. We ideally want to have no alcohol in our system whatsoever, but that's one of the parts of the checklist that we need to check before we go fly. The next letter in the acronym is going to be F, which is fatigue. Making sure we've got enough sleep during the night before. 8 hours is the best amount of sleep, or the minimum amount of sleep that you need to have before going to fly. The last letter in the acronym is E, which is external pressures. Anything that might be affecting our mental stability throughout the flight, if we've got issues at home or things of that nature. And that really concludes the I'm Safe checklist. The reason we would use that is anytime before a flight, before we go, we want to check ourselves to make sure that we're okay to conduct the flight that we're going to be going on. So the second acronym we'll talk about is the safety acronym, which we use in the plane before we actually taxi out to the runway. The first letter is going to be S for seatbelts. We need to make sure that we are wearing our seatbelts the entire flight. Taxi, takeoff, landing, cruise, any of those phases of flight. The next letter in the acronym is going to be A, which is air vents. In our nice Archers, we've got AC. We have air vents to the top right of us and the top left of us, respectively, between the student side and the instructor side. We also have air vents at our feet that we can open and close to allow airflow for hot days like in the summer in Texas, like 104-degree heat. The AC really helps out with that, but we have those air vents for us to stay cool. The next letter in the acronym is going to be F. It stands for fire extinguisher. We have fire extinguishers in the plane for any fires that happen, whether that be electrical fires or engine fires. The next letter in the acronym is going to be T, which is talking, or we like to say as pilots is sterile cockpit. What this means is during critical phases of flight, so like takeoff, landing, and any time we're close to the ground, we're going to be focusing on the task at hand and keeping our communication between the instructor and the student to a minimum of what's actually happening in that phase of flight. So we wouldn't be talking about what you had for lunch the day before, or what the baseball game happened last night, who's won, who scored the best. The next letter in the acronym is going to be Y. We use this as a wrap-up to say your questions. If the student goes through the checklist and then looks at the instructor and says, do you have any questions about the things that I've gone over? Or if they have any passengers that the student might be taking, this is going to be an acronym for them to use to brief the passenger on really everything that's going to be happening during the flight. The student might be asking their passengers if they have any questions about the checklist that they just went over, the safety checklist. So that's the safety checklist. We use that before we taxi out to brief the passengers or said instructor before we actually depart. So the next checklist we'll go over, or the third checklist we'll go over, is PAIR, which stands for power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder full opposite, and elevator forward. This is going to be our spin recovery checklist. So the P starts with power idle. If you ever get into a spin, we want to we're diving to the ground, so the first thing we want to do is pull the power out so we're not continuing that dive towards the ground. The next letter in the acronym is going to be A, which is ailerons neutral. In a spin, if your ailerons are to the sides, they're not going to be helping you very much, but we want to neutralize those controls. So the next letter in the acronym is going to be R, which is rudder full opposite, whether in the direction, the opposite direction of the spin. So if we're spinning to the left, we're going to use the right rudder. If we're spinning to the right, we're going to use the left rudder. This is supposed to help us with the exit and actually stop the spin itself. The next letter in the acronym is going to be E, which is elevator forward. What we're trying to do, and you might be wondering, why are we pushing our elevator forward if we're already going towards the ground? Well, in a spin, it's a stall and a yaw, and we've already corrected for the yaw with the rudder control. Now we're going to be correcting the stall with the forward elevator pressure. That's going to break our stall, to reduce that critical angle of attack, and get the plane flying again. And then we can pull out of the dive nice and slow so we don't stress those wings. So that's the pair checklist. It's a spin recovery checklist, just in case that you get into a spin, you know how to recover from it and get out of the spin and then come out of the dive. So that concludes the acronyms that every pilot should know. If you have any questions about the acronyms we went over today, feel free to leave a comment down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos that we might have.